Welcome back, guys, to the Andrew Delich podcast. Today, reality check. I'm alone. Many different topics. Okay, so guys, let's start off with... So recently, I watched the full interview podcast of Piers Morgan and the infamous, the crazy guy, as many people call him on social media, Nick J. Fuentes. So I watched the complete interview. It was like 2 hours and a half. From that interview, I mean... in my opinion, both were wrong and right. Both were right and wrong on different topics. In my opinion, I was like in the middle when it came to both. On some topics, Piers Morgan was right. And on some other topics, Nick Fuentes was right. I understand many people hate Nick Fuentes because he's very controversial. And many people see him as a bigot, as a racist, sexist, anti-Semite. I'm going to get into that after. But, I mean, Nick J. Fuentes... love him or hate him, at the end of the day, he's a smart guy. Like, you can see that he's really smart. And I'm not saying that I agree with what he says. To a certain degree, and to certain topics, I agree. Other topics, I disagree. But you cannot say that he's dumb. He's very smart. He's very articulate. He's very educated. And he's very knowledgeable on the subjects that he talks about, that he discusses on his platform, on Rumble specifically. So from that interview, what I saw is... in my opinion, I think Nick J. Fuentes sometimes is performative. So when he talks, he's going to talk a lot in exaggeration and hyperbole just to grab the audience's attention, which is normal. I mean, he's like a podcaster and this is social media, right? So if you're not controversial to a certain degree, you're going to be boring and less people are going to follow you. So, and also that's media, right? Like you have to add a little bit of controversy, a little bit of flair, a little bit of excitement, a little bit of hate, a little bit of love, a little bit of preach. You have to be a little bit more in the extremes than in the middle. So that's what Nick Fuentes does. So sometimes I feel like he's performative when it comes to certain topics. Sometimes I feel like he's telling the honest truth. I feel like what he says, sometimes he abuses just to grab someone's attention, but like to a certain degree, he agrees and he truly believes what he says to a certain degree. Now, in my opinion, from what I saw, I think that he truly is an anti-Semite, meaning he hates Jewish people, in my opinion, from what I saw and what I heard from him. He's an anti-Semite. From what I heard, now maybe he's only talking like that, maybe he doesn't truly think like that, but from what I heard also, he looks like a sexist. I mean, I saw a clip of him saying like, women should shut the fuck up and stay in the kitchen. I mean, I'm going to say that with my friends to joke around, but I don't truly believe that. There's a difference. But when he says it, and plus he says it on his platform, he's being serious when he says it. So I'm going to take him for his word. So if he truly believes that women should shut the fuck up and stay in the kitchen and not have rights to vote and whatever else, then that's being sexist, right? Because women and men, we're equal. Yes, we are different. We have different forces and weaknesses, different strengths and weaknesses, but that's just normal. That's just the part of being a human being. And even amongst men, we're all different, we're all unique. But if we take the globality in the bigger picture, men in general are different than women, and amongst men, we're more similar than men amongst women and women amongst men. In general, of course, there can be a specific man who is very similar to a specific woman in terms of personality, but if you take the larger scale and the grand number, the totality, men and women are different. To just make a quick and simple conclusion regarding that topic and that discussion. So from what I saw, he is a sexist. Sometimes, in my opinion, Nick Fuentes goes too much in the hyperbole and he exaggerates a bit too much sometimes. Because sometimes I feel like he wants to express himself, which he does very well. But he also wants to be like funny, controversial, and catch the audience's attention. So sometimes he's going to use certain words like the N-word. He uses the N-word a lot. I never use it. Never, especially not in front of a camera. But even behind a camera, I don't use the word. I have many black friends and I'm not going to use it out of respect. Although personally, if they call me a cracker, I'm not going to give a fuck. But hey, that's... even if they were to call me a shit Serbian or whatever, Andrew Delich, I personally wouldn't give a fuck, but I understand how some people, they care more about certain situations and certain things like that, similar to those. So to each their own, right? But me specifically, I don't give a fuck if someone calls me a cracker, white trash, Serbian trash. I personally, that wouldn't affect me a little bit because I know who I am. I know I'm Andrew Delich, so I don't give a fuck if I'm white, and that doesn't do with my competency and what I did and what I'm going to do in the future. It has nothing to do with me as a person, but that's me. But out of respect for others, out of respect for my friends, I'm not going to call them names that they don't like being called. So that's why I'm not going to use the N-word. Nick Fuentes, though, on the other hand, he uses the N-word a lot. For people who don't know, Nick Fuentes is banned from all major platforms. So he's banned from YouTube, from Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. He's basically only available on Rumble, which is like a fucking, how do we call a Kijiji version of YouTube. Rumble is like, it's like YouTube, but way less popular. But I have Rumble, so I can listen to people like Andrew Tate, like Nick Fuentes, and get more information on their takes and get just more content and more ideas for my own podcasts. So, of course, I have Rumble, but he's banned from all these major platforms. And the reason why he's banned from all these major platforms isn't because of the way he thinks. There's many people who agree with what he says. He has many, many followers. He's one of the most streamed podcasters on planet Earth. He does live podcasts, and he's one of the most streamed live podcasters on planet Earth. And imagine if he was allowed to be on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok, Instagram, all these major platforms. He will be way, way more popular. He would have way, way more status, and he would have a lot more money than what he has right now. He would be way more successful than what he is right now. And if only he tweaked a little bit his vocabulary, so he stops saying the N-word, he stops going too much in the hyperbole, exaggerating too much, he wouldn't be banned from these major platforms. But he keeps saying the N-word. It's not only the N-word. I'm just singling out that specific word that he keeps saying. But there's many other words, and the way he says them, it can incite hate. Like, the way he says it, I understand, like, someone can see it and feel like it comes from a place of hate. Now, in my opinion, I feel like it's performative from Nick Fuentes because this is social media, like I said in the beginning of the episode. So I feel like sometimes he just, like, plays this character a little bit, but at the same time, that's what he truly believes, but he only exaggerates it. He dramatizes it for social media. That's how I see it. And that's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. We're never going to know. But from what I saw, that's what I think. So if only he stopped using certain words, he wouldn't be banned from all major platforms, which in result would mean that he would be way more famous. He would have way more followers, way more status, way more fame, way more money, and way more success. So I know Nick Fuentes is probably never going to see this fucking clip or this episode, but my advice to him would be tweak a little bit your vocabulary. Like, instead of saying, oh, these motherfuckers, blah, 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 you can simply explain the same thing you want to explain the same theory you want to explain, but with different words, but you come to the same conclusion and to the same result. But simply using nicer words and more family-friendly words. Of course, family-friendly to a certain degree. But if it was like, you can explain the same topic, you can explain the same theory that he wants to explain, he can keep the same ideologies, he can explain the same ideologies, but simply using a different route to get to his goal, to get to his end destination. So when there's a speech, of course, you're going to start with a hook, you're going to say something, then you're going to explain it, and then you're going to have like a conclusion. So the way he takes the road, the way he expresses himself, if he was to use a different car, so you guys understand what I'm trying to do with the road, if he was to use a different car, a different way of driving, a different way of expressing himself, less hate, more just simply explaining it without so much hate. Of course, he is passionate about what he does, but again, you can still use just different words. Instead of saying the N-word, you can say African Americans, you can say Black Americans, you can say Black people. That's already better, right, than saying the N-word. Instead of saying whatever other word, you can always find a substitute for a word which is nicer and more camera friendly and more better for social media, which means that you won't get banned from all these major platforms. Yes, I agree. Sometimes Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, they're too family friendly. They're too, like, they don't let you express yourself enough. In my opinion, they should be more tolerant towards all types of people and towards all types of ideologies, just like X is. In my opinion, that's how it should be. But I'm not Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not the owner of Instagram. I'm not the owner of YouTube, so I don't decide. Mark Zuckerberg is the owner of Instagram, so he's going to decide who gets banned and who doesn't. Now, of course, my opinion since like it's like a mix of both. Yes, social media, Instagram is a private company. So of course, Mark Zuckerberg should have his say and have control over it. But social media is going to become, it's already so big and so powerful. And it's just going to get bigger and bigger and more powerful. In a way, it should be like half private and half government controlled, because it's going to be so powerful and so in our lives. And like even now, it's so fucking big that we cannot give all the power to simply one guy. Like that's how I see it. And at the end of the day, it is his company. He created it out of nothing. If it wasn't for him, it never would have existed. But at the same time, if it wasn't for the guy who invented the internet, who invented the Wi-Fi, electricity, he couldn't have done what he did. So like of course, it's a conversation that goes on and on and on. It's a debate that could go on for years and years and never end. But my advice to Nick Fuentes, like I said, tweak a little bit your vocabulary. Don't use such hateful words all the time. Sometimes just tweak it a little bit, and you won't be banned from all these major platforms. And that's my opinion. Like what he says, there are some things that I agree, like his thoughts on immigration. Like when he clarified what he truly thinks about immigration, I agree. He said that before we also had immigration, but it was more controlled. It's just nowadays it's not controlled. We're having a mass migration, which doesn't give people the time to assimilate and to adjust to their new country, their new way of life, to a new culture. And plus, of course, like I had the same opinion always. If you have a Western Christian country, it's going to be similar values, right? And a similar culture. Like let's say English culture is way more similar to American culture than it is to Egyptian culture, right? It's a fact. German culture is way more similar to Canadian culture, although they have a lot of differences. But at the end of the day, they are Western, they are Christian based. So they are way more similar than Germany and Algeria, right? Germany and Canada are way more similar in terms of culture, in terms of values, and in terms of everything than Germany and Algeria, than Germany and China, right? Because they remain Western countries. They remain countries, of course, secular, but based on Christian values in the beginning. They remain similarly same countries, right? So, of course, like he said, when you get an immigrant, let's say in America, that is from Sweden, like Trump said, why don't we have more immigrants from Sweden, Norway, and Denmark instead of Somalia? That's what he said. Of course, it's going to be easier for a Swedish guy, for a Norwegian guy, for a guy from Denmark to assimilate and to adapt the new values and the new culture, which is American culture, than it is for a Somalian. Why? Because Swedish way of life, Norwegian way of life, Denmark way of life, the Scandinavian way of life, the Scandinavian culture, the Scandinavian values are way more similar to the American values than the Somalian values are to the American values. So, of course, it's a fact that not all immigration is the same. That's what Nick Fuentes expresses. But the way he expresses, I understand how some people can see it as hate. I don't see it as hate. The way he expressed it was pretty well articulate, and it made a lot of sense, in my opinion. But I agree. So not all immigration is the same. And that's the reason why. Just the same logic as if someone was to immigrate from Japan to China, right? It's way more similar, Japan and China. Maybe not, because Japan is way more Western than what it was before. But let's say like Vietnam. If someone wants to go from Vietnam to Myanmar, it's going to be way more similar than if he was to go from Vietnam to Canada, right? Vietnamese culture, of course, as much as it is different from Myanmar culture and way of life and values, I'm not sure, because I never really focus on that part of the world. But I'm pretty sure they're way more similar in culture, values, way of life than Vietnam and Canada, than Vietnam and France, Vietnam and Egypt, Vietnam and whatever. It's more similar. It's more the same. So it's going to be easier for someone to assimilate, to integrate, and to function properly in that specific culture and that specific society. It is what it is. If someone was to immigrate from Kazakhstan to Uzbekistan, I'm pretty sure it's going to be way easier for him to adapt to his new country than if he was to go from Kazakhstan to the United States, right? I mean, Jesus Christ, that's simple, pure logic. That's simple logic. That's purely logic and rational. Like, it makes a lot of fucking sense. Even if you're fucking dumb, that makes a lot of fucking sense. So regarding that topic, regarding that specific topic. I agree with Nick Fuentes, although I don't agree with him when he says that, like once he said, Jews are running society, blacks should be in prison for the most part, and women should shut the fuck up and stay in the kitchen. Now you see how he exaggerates? That's way too much. Like, what the actual fuck? Like, that's just too much. That's crazy in my opinion. That's where, in my opinion, he's an anti-Semite. And of course, if I take him word for word, what he said regarding blacks should be in prison for the most part, that's racist. And then when he said that women should shut the fuck up and stay in the kitchen, that's simply sexist. So of course, maybe he's performative because he knows that's gonna give him more clicks, more likes, more views. But maybe it's performative, maybe it isn't. But at the end of the day, I'm not in his mind. I'm not in his close circle. So I don't know how he truly thinks. But from what I heard, from what I saw, of course, like he once argued on Piers Morgan's podcast, platform, Piers Morgan Uncensored, he said, you cannot simply take one of my clips out of context and then have a complete opinion about me if you didn't watch long form content. I agree, and that's true. At the end of the day, it's mostly clips, right? It's mostly clips. And now I'm talking to you guys, to whoever. Whenever you saw a clip of Joe Rogan, whenever you saw Joe Rogan say something, whenever you saw Chris Willicks saying something, whenever you heard all these big podcasters say something, for 80% of the population, they heard it from clips. They do make a lot of views on their long form content, but they make way more views on clips because now with clip farming, which is clip culture, clips gives you way more views, way more interaction than long form content because it is what it is. So of course, I agree. I never watched one of his full long episodes, which are like 2 hours a podcast of him talking, probably with guests also. I'm not sure. But from the clips I saw, and I did watch his full interview with Piers Morgan, so that's my complete opinion regarding Nick Fuentes. Piers Morgan sometimes he acts like a fucking woke guy. I don't know if it's performative. I don't know if he's simply playing an image, playing a game to simply get one of his guests to say something or to play the devil's advocate. But sometimes I hear Piers Morgan talk, especially when it comes to soccer. When I hear Piers Morgan talking about soccer, I want to punch him in the fucking face. Now, that's a joke. Don't sue me. I want to punch him in the fucking face. That's a joke. Meaning he has zero ball knowledge. Zero, like he has no ball knowledge. He's probably, hot take, not that hot actually, he's probably the British with the least ball knowledge on planet fucking Earth. You know how the British love soccer, football, European football? You know how much they love football? It's like a culture. They invented the sport. Them and Brazilians, they're amongst the people who love soccer, football the most. And Piers Morgan, being an Englishman, doesn't know shit about football. He has zero football knowledge, zero footballing IQ, like zero. I already addressed that many times on my podcast, but hey, I just wanted to say it again. So of course, when I watched his interview with Nick Fuentes, sometimes I heard Piers Morgan say something, I'm like, bro, he truly doesn't know what he's talking about, in my opinion. On other topics, he isn't. Like sometimes maybe he acts, maybe he's also playing a persona, being performative to get the most out of his guest. There is probably maybe a hidden agenda. Who knows? It remains media. Like I said, sometimes you're going to say something even if you don't truly agree with it because you know it's going to get you clicks. But at the same time, you have to remain authentic. So you remain authentic, but in remaining social media, you're going to abuse sometimes, exaggerate, and dramatize what you say just to get more views and clicks. But hey, those were my thoughts on Nick Fuentes and Piers Morgan, especially their interview. So now, guys, recently, from what I know, Palestine and Israel are in peace, of course, to a certain degree. Of course. But recently I saw a clip on Instagram where I saw Palestinian protesters in Montreal protesting. Now, of course, I said it so many times, Canada is a democratic country. You have the liberty and you have the freedom to go and protest. You have the freedom as long as it's peaceful, as long as it's by law and you respect the laws of the protests. I'm not sure what the laws are, but there is a set of laws of how you can have a peaceful and legal protest. As long as it's legal, as long as it's peaceful, have all the protests you want. My Palestinian brothers, all the more power to you. I still don't understand why you're protesting, because in my opinion, I don't think it's doing anything. I mean, your protests, maybe you guys feel better because you're like, oh my God, we're making a difference. In my opinion, you guys aren't making a difference. The only thing you're doing, in my opinion, from what I heard and from my experience, you're making non-Palestinians and non-supporters of Palestine and non-Muslims and non-Arabs dislike you guys. Because you guys are allowed, from what I saw, the clips I saw, many of you guys, not all of you guys, but a certain, maybe not many, because many entitles more than 50%, a certain amount of you guys are very disrespectful and aren't very nice. I'll say it like that. I don't want to use bad words. Many of you Palestinian protesters are very disrespectful and very not nice. Which, I mean, no one's blind, no one's dumb. When people see that, they then make a certain opinion of you guys, and it's not a good opinion. So in my opinion, you guys aren't changing anything. Maybe you guys feel better. Hey, if it brings you peace of mind, if you feel better about yourself, all the more power to you, as long as it's peaceful and by law, legal, all the more power to you. But if I'm being honest, like if I'm talking bro to bro, brother to brother, because we're all brothers under God, we're all brothers and sisters. You guys aren't really doing shit. You're protesting in Canada. Okay, is there war here? Last time I checked, this is Canada. This is North America. The war is in Asia, right? Israel and Palestine. That's in Asia, right? It's there. You guys protesting here isn't going to change Israel's opinion. It's not going to change anything, because Israel, if I'm being honest, are a really powerful country. They have a lot of fucking power. It's a fact. They are best friends with America. I saw somewhere someone say that throughout the history of the world, throughout history of humanity and country relations, the relationship that America has with Israel is the most powerful relationship that any country had with another country. That's what I heard. That's what I read. And that's a fact. So when you're Israel, really powerful, really strong, and then you have America as your best friend, let's keep it 100, broski. Nobody's touching you. Ain't nobody touching you. I'm not saying I love Israel and America. I love their country. I love their culture. I love their way of life. I love their politics to a certain degree. But I love the Western world. I'm born here. I'm raised here. And I'm always going to be pro-Westerner. And since America are with Israel, Israel are with us, I'm always going to be pro them. And ain't nobody stopping them. But what I don't like about certain Palestinian protesters, like I said, some of them are really disrespectful. And there was recently a protest in Montreal, and they went in front of a Christmas market. Christmas market, Christianity, the birth of Jesus Christ, the 25th of December, or the 7th of January for my Orthodox brothers. Don't play dumb. You guys know, my Palestinian protesters, you guys know why you went directly in front of the Christmas market in Montreal. You guys wanted to show power. You guys wanted to show like, oh, look, no one can do anything to us. Of course, it was peaceful from what I saw. The clip was like a minute long. From what I saw, it was peaceful. It was legal. But this comes back to public perception. When the public sees that, and don't forget, like in Canada, it's 95% Christians, right? Like 90% Christians, like 3% to 5% Muslims, and the rest probably like Jews, Hindus, whatever. But it's like 85% Christians in Canada. And I'm also counting like atheists here, like all the white Canadians are atheists, but on paper they're Christian. So it's like 85 to 90% Christian. Or let me put it this way, it's 95% non-Muslim in Canada. It can be whatever, but it's 95% non-Muslim, right? That's a fact. Those are stats. When they see what you guys did in front of the Christmas market, it being totally legal, peaceful to a certain degree, what do you think their perceptions are going to be regarding towards you guys? Is it going to be good or bad? I think you guys are pretty smart. I mean, smart to a certain degree. But I think you guys are smart enough to understand and to know what the 95% of the population of Canada, which is non-Muslim, what their perception will be towards the Palestinian protesters who went directly in front of the Christmas market to scream free, free Palestine, to scream slurs against the Western world, to scream slurs against Christianity, to scream slurs against Canada, Quebec, whatever it can be. what do you think their perception will be? Good or bad? I mean, let's not be dumb. It's gonna be bad, which is normal. Those are my opinion. I think that's pretty disrespectful. It's not legal. It's not illegal, right? It's not illegal. It's illegal. You can go in front of the Christmas market and protest whatever you want. You have that right, but it's disrespectful. Just as much as I have the right to tell someone you're a fat piece of shit. I have the right to do that, right? I'm not gonna go to jail. It's not illegal, but it's disrespectful. Even if he is a fat piece of shit, I hate saying that word, but I'm trying to make an example right now. Even if I'm allowed to say it, it's still not nice and it's still disrespectful, right? If I go and see a woman and say, you fat, I'm not gonna say the B word, you fat, ugly girl, I'm allowed to say it. It's not illegal, but it's not nice, right? People aren't gonna like you. The people who heard you say it, now of course, depending on circumstances and situations, the perception of you can change. But in general, people are gonna say that wasn't a nice thing to say. That wasn't respectful. That was disrespectful. But there's no cops who's gonna come and arrest me, right? It's not illegal. I'm not gonna go to jail. I'm not gonna go face trial in front of a judge. I'm not, or a jury, a pair of my jurors, 12 jurors. I'm not gonna go there, right? Because it's not illegal. But it's still disrespectful. So that's what I mean. When I saw the Palestinian protesters protesting, screaming nonsense, screaming whatever, in front of the Christmas market, it being a Christian celebration in a Christian country. Of course, it's a secular country. It has no religion, but 85% of people in Canada are Christian, maybe even like 92%, something of that sort. You guys can't understand how it can be seen as disrespectful by 95% of the population who is non-Muslim in Canada, right? Just like the example I made, I can tell someone you're a fat piece of shit. It's not illegal, but it's not nice. And like, in my opinion, me personally, Andrew Delich, I'm speaking for myself right now. If I, at the age of 25, being a white Christian Canadian, if I was to immigrate to Algeria, let's say, to Iraq, let's say I was going to immigrate to Iraq, right? Majoritarily Arab, majoritarily Muslim country, right? It is what it is. If I was to immigrate there, me personally, I'm not dumb. I know, okay, I'm going in an Arabic country, in a Muslim country. So of course, their culture, their way of life, their way of thinking, their perception of life is going to be different than mine, which is of a straight white male who is Canadian and Christian. Of course, it's going to be different. I'm not dumb. I wasn't born yesterday. I'm not dumb, right? I understand that. But if I'm in my mind, I'm like, okay, but I truly want to live in Iraq for X, Y reason. I'm going to go there and me personally, I'm going to be 100% tolerant towards their way of life, towards their culture, and towards what they love and how they see life. I'm going to be 100% tolerant, even if I don't want to assimilate. I mean, if I am going to live there, I'm going to assimilate to a certain degree, which is what I suggest that immigrants should do when they come to Canada, just like my parents did, refugees from Yugoslavia, ex-Yugoslavia. Of course, I'm going to integrate in a society and assimilate to a certain degree. But let's say I don't want to assimilate to their culture, their way of life, their way of thinking. I have the right, as long as I respect their laws, and as long as I respect their laws. That's the most important, is that you respect their laws. But at the same time, I personally wouldn't care if they celebrate. I mean, what do they celebrate, Muslims? What is it called? Ramadan. I wouldn't care. I would even tell them, hey, happy Ramadan, man, because I don't celebrate it, but I know you guys do. I know the country is majoritarily Muslim. I know that the majority of the country celebrates Ramadan. So I'm going to be happy for them. I'm going to even be curious. I'm going to be like, oh, I'm really curious. How does it work? Like, what do you guys do during the day? When do you guys eat? When do you stop eating? I'm going to ask questions, and I'm going to be really like just curious about it. And I'm going to be really respectful and really acceptant towards their culture, their way of life, because quote unquote, I'm a guest there. I understand, even though I'm a citizen, I'm going to be Iraqi, but in a way, I'm always going to be a guest, because I'm always going to be a minority over there, because I'm not Arabic, I'm not a Muslim. So of course, I'm always going to be a minority there. But the main argument of my point right now is that I will be fully respectful towards their culture, towards their way of life. And if I don't like it, I'm simply going to go back to where I came from. I mean, isn't that, like, in my mind, there's nothing wrong there, and that's 100% logical. That's fully logical in my mind. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm maybe the way I think is completely off, which I don't think is the case. For me, that's just normal. So I don't understand why some people don't want to do the same when they come to our countries, and why they get all offended when we celebrate Christmas, which is something all Canadians celebrate because it's part of our culture, part of our identity, part of our way of life. I don't understand, but hey, to each their own, I guess, but it's just dumb, man. Okay, so this is something I always used to say. Just because you didn't do something mean doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to do it in the future. There's a difference between not doing something because you know it's not good and not doing something simply because you can't. Here's the difference. Let's say I have a friend. He has a girlfriend for 10 years now, right? And he's like, oh, you know what? I'm such a good guy. I never cheated on her. Now, if the reason that he never cheated on her is because he doesn't want to, he had many options and he had many opportunities to cheat on her in the past, but he chose not to, then he's a good guy. But if he's a guy and he has a girlfriend for 10 years and he never had the opportunity or the chance to cheat on her, of course, at the end of the day, he never did the bad action, so he's not going to be a bad guy. But you cannot say, to a certain degree, you can say that he's a good guy, but at the same time, you cannot say that he's as good as this other guy who had the opportunity and who had the chances to do it in the past, but didn't do it out of respect and out of love for his girlfriend. If he's simply a guy who never cheated on his girlfriend or his wife because he never had the opportunity and never had the chance, that's completely different. Because maybe if he had the opportunity, he would have cheated on her. That's where the difference is. Just because you don't have the opportunity to do something doesn't mean you're a good person. Because maybe if you did have that opportunity, you would do it. Same goes for, you know how people say, all these politicians, especially in, like, let's take Serbia, for example. In Serbia, they all say, all these politicians are crooks and they all steal. They do all steal, and they are majoritarily all crooks in Serbia, politicians. They are. But you as an individual, not all, but 90% of you guys, if you were in the same position as those politicians, you would steal. It's just you never had the opportunity and you never had the chance to steal money from the government and from the people like they did. But if you had the chance, you wouldn't wait, you wouldn't hesitate for a second, you would do the same that they did. And here's an example, right? If, let's say there's a bus, right? Let's say you're in Ottawa, you can take the bus. If somehow you can hop on the bus without paying and nothing's gonna happen, you're gonna do it, right? Of course, that's like $2-3, but still, you stole $2-3. 99% of the people would do it if they know that they wouldn't get caught and nothing would happen. They'll be like, oh, it's only $2-3. I don't want to pay $2-3. So if I can just hop in and nothing's going to happen, I'm going to do it. So you stole. But now someone can simply say, oh yeah, but it's only $2-3. Yes, but that's the only opportunity you had to steal money. You never had the opportunity to take $10 million from the government or from the citizens and nothing happened. So you never had that opportunity. But simply the fact that you had the opportunity to steal $3-4 from a bus fare and you took it and you did it because you knew that nothing was going to happen, is the same logic as these politicians. The reason they steal $20 million, let's just say $20 million for the sake of the argument, the reason they do it is because they have the opportunity and they have the chance of doing it without getting caught and without anything happening to them. So, I mean, you have to be fucking a priest, you have to be fucking Mother Teresa to not steal that, right? So, just because you didn't do something doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good person. You are a good person if you had the chance and the opportunity to do it, and then you chose not to do it out of morality and out of goodness for life and for humanity. But if you never did it because you never had the chance and never had the opportunity, I cannot say you're a bad guy because you still didn't do the action. But the way to know and the way to test you is once when you're going to have the opportunity to cheat, to steal money, to lie, to rob, whatever, if you choose to do it, you're not a good person. If you choose to not do it out of goodness, out of morality, and out of good values, then you're a good person. Okay, okay, now next topic. When I was young, all my friends were immigrants like myself, and the reason why is because I played soccer. I was a big soccer fanatic. Even to this day I am, just now I play a bit less. But when I was young, I used to play soccer, and I even wanted to be a professional soccer player. That was like my dream, just like many other people. And in Canada, there are a lot of white Canadians who play soccer, but the majority of people who play soccer are immigrants or sons of immigrants like myself. So of course I grew up amongst many Arabs, blacks, Hispanics, Italians, Serbians, you name it, amongst many sons of immigrants and immigrants themselves because of soccer. When I was young, I was all for multiculturalism, and I thought it was a really beautiful thing. Like, of course, many beautiful cultures, ethnicities all coming together and then coexisting. That's really beautiful. But I don't think it works, man. And the reason why I don't think it works is because I feel like, from my experience, from what I saw, only white people are tolerant towards other ethnicities and races. Of course, I'm not saying that all the other races and all the other ethnicities are not tolerant, but the majority of people who are part of these other races and ethnicities, which is not white Canadian, they're way more or less tolerant in general than white Canadians. Of course, you have some white Canadians who are really fucking racist and they don't tolerate anything which is different from their culture and their way of life. Of course, they exist. But if you take the percentage, the denominator being white people and the denominator being tolerant white people, and then on the other hand, you take the denominator being non-white Canadians and the denominator being non-white Canadians who are tolerant towards other races and ethnicities, the percentage on the first one is going to be way higher than the percentage on the second one, based on my perception, based on what I saw, based on my past experiences, based on what I heard from people, based on my personal experiences. The percentage of white people, white Canadians who are going to be tolerant towards other races and ethnicities is going to be way higher than the percentage of non-white Canadians being tolerant towards other races and ethnicities. So of course, if only one group, for sake of the argument, I'm going to generalize, if only one group is tolerant and is all for multiculturalism and all the other groups aren't, how can it work, right? It cannot work. If only white Canadians are being not primal and aren't having a protect my group mentality and are being open-minded, and all these other groups aren't, how can multiculturalism work? Like, just be logical about it. How can it work? It can't, because only those people are going to be tolerant and all these other people aren't going to be tolerant. So of course it's not going to work. So that's my opinion, and that's why I feel like it's not going to work. Before, like in 1920, the white population on planet Earth was 20%. Now, in 2025, it's 7%. White people, if you take all the races, I think it's like, let's say black, white, all these races, white people are the biggest minority on planet Earth. They are. And the reason why, of course, low birth rates, and this just happens, it's not because of skin color, but it's simply because of modernization. When a society is more modern, when a country is more modern, birth rates go down. That's just normal. That's true throughout the entire world. That's a fact of life. So in general, white countries being the most modern, they have the less kids. So of course they're gonna make the less kids. Like if you compare it to Indians are fucking popping out 10 kids per family. That's a big difference. Hispanics are having like 5 kids per families. Black Africans are having like 10 kids. Arabs are having like 10 kids. Everyone's having more kids than white people. That's a fact. So of course, it's normal that it's only 7% and that they're the biggest minority on planet Earth because they're having the less kids. It's just logical. A X amount of people die, an X amount of white people die, and a certain amount of white babies are being born, compared to a certain amount of black people being born and a certain amount of black babies being born. Again, the percentage is way, way different. Whites have the least amount of babies on planet Earth. White people have the least amount of babies. Nothing wrong there. But since this is a fact, of course now Western countries, which are majoritarily white, they have to take certain precautions to make sure that they don't lose their way of life and they don't lose their culture. Now, of course, on social media, of course, people are always going to be in the extreme. You're always going to hear people say, oh my God, like there's this trend I saw on social media, people thinking that white people are going to go extinct. In my opinion, white people are never going to go extinct. It's never going to happen. Of course, maybe they're going to be less, but we're never going to go extinct. It's never going to happen. So I don't know, like that's just fear mongering, trying to put fear into people's hearts and whatever, just make them maybe, because you have a hidden agenda, then you want to make them think a certain way. That's why you fear monger them with, oh my God, white people are going to go extinct. It's never going to happen. And not only that, if I might add, all the Western countries who are majoritarily white, they're always going to remain majoritarily white. There's never going to be an invasion in white countries. They're always going to be majoritarily white. What happens is now Western countries, which are majoritarily white, they're dormant in a way. Like they accept immigration, they accept different cultures, different way of life, because life is good. Of course, there is stress, but life is better in these countries than other countries. So they're more tolerant. They're like, yeah, bring more immigrants, it's okay. They're going to have a house. They're going to have a school to go to for their kids. They're going to have a job. No problem. I have a job. I have a house. My kids are healthy. I'm healthy. Everything's going well. Canada is still Canada. America is still America. France is still France. Germany is still Germany. So I don't feel the necessity. I don't feel the extra motivation to go out of my way to protect my culture and identity, because it's still very intact in my country. But once white people feel like their culture, their way of life, their values are getting attacked by different people, by other ethnicities, other cultures, other races, that's where they're going to wake up, because it's just normal, right? You want to protect your culture, you want to protect your country, you want to protect your identity, you want to protect your way of life, which is just normal. Just as much as Arab people want to protect their culture, their heritage, their way of life, just as much as Chinese people want to protect their culture, their heritage, their way of life, just as much as Indians, Africans, Latinos, whatever. Same goes for Western whites. Just what happens is, in general, Western whites are more tolerant towards differences. They're more tolerant towards different ethnicities and races. So they're going to tolerate more than these other parts of the world. But there's going to be a tipping stage. There's going to be a stage where they're like, okay, enough is enough. We cannot tolerate so much anymore. We have to put a foot down. And they're going to do it because they want to preserve, just like any other country on planet Earth, they want to preserve their heritage, their culture, their way of life, their values, and everything that the Western world stands for. That's just normal. So of course, now, like I said, they're still dormant, but they're slowly waking up to the protection of their heritage and their culture. But if once it goes too much on the other side, they're going to wake up and they're not going to tolerate. So I don't understand why some people are like, oh my God, white people are going to go extinct. We're going to lose our society. We're going to lose our culture, our way of life. We're going to be extinct. We're going to be a minority. It's never going to happen, man. It's impossible for it to happen. There's many past references where white people woke up and they protected their land, their culture. The British fucking went everywhere on the planet Earth during their empire. They fucking conquered everything. The Roman Empire protected their culture and their identity for 1,000 years. The Crusaders protected their way of life. They protected Europe from the Muslims for hundreds of years. There's many stories throughout history where people are just primal in general, right? All groups are primal. All groups want to protect their culture and their identity and their way of life. Just in general, like I said, white people are more tolerant. White Westerners are more tolerant towards differences, towards other races and ethnicities. So they're going to tolerate more from others than these other groups. They're, quote unquote, less primal than these other groups. But also they're primal to a certain degree. And if you push them too much, try to push them too much out of their culture, their way of life, and their country, they're just going to wake up and they're not going to tolerate it, which is just normal. Okay, thoughts. Once Andrew Tate said on Twitter, he said, the West is collapsing because it's full of disgusting traitors. White people who beg to be erased. Is just insane to me to see such open treachery by the white man against his race. Simping for women and accommodating invaders. Extinction is coming for a race of betrayers. Now you see how Andrew Tate, of course, he's very controversial. I don't know if he truly thinks this, but if he does, he's wrong. I mean, he's just trying to maybe fearmonger us or just trying to push an agenda. But you have nothing to fear. Westerners who love their country, which is mostly all Westerners, who love their culture, who love their way of life, don't worry. Italy is always going to remain Italy. England is always going to remain Italy. France is always going to remain France. Canada is always going to remain Canada. United States is always going to remain the United States. The Western world is always, always, always going to remain the Western world. Now, the Western world being a democratic country, being a free country where freedom of speech not only is tolerated, but is highly valued to a certain degree, where the First Amendment in America, when all the smartest people got together in 1776 to write the Constitution for America on the 4th of July, the First Amendment they wrote, the most important amendment, was freedom of speech. Now, us living in a democratic country where freedom of speech is number one, of course, in order to speak the truth, or at least in order to speak what you believe to be the truth, you have to fear offending certain people, which is normal. If you don't balance on offending people, telling the truth is never going to be told, and we're just going to live in a country where people aren't allowed to express themselves, because we're all different. We all have a different way of thinking. But that's what's beautiful about the Western world and about democracy and about the freedom of speech. We're all different, and we all have the right to express ourselves without fear of us getting harmed by others and us getting violently hit or beaten up by other people, or even killed, rest in peace, like Charlie Kirk did, simply for expressing his thoughts and expressing his theories, which would never happen, which should never happen, because this is a democratic country where freedom of speech exists, where it's highly valued, where it's the First Amendment in America and mostly the Western world, and where it's the most valued thing that we have. So that should never happen. But freedom of speech is important. And of course, when you have freedom of speech, you are going to risk offending people, which is simply normal. But even if you're offended, like Ricky Gervais once said, just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. That's true. Just because you're offended about something doesn't mean you're right. So that's why freedom of speech, so happy it exists, is the most beautiful thing on planet Earth. And it is what it is. So once Andrew Tate once said that, and he was like, I saw a clip of him, I just found that a bit funny. He was talking about, and he said, imagine if there was a country with 1 billion white people. He said that would be a powerhouse. 1 billion Nordic, blonde-haired, blue-eyed people, closed borders, no reproduction problems, no baby problems, closed borders, and only white people. He was like, that would be a powerhouse. I don't feel like really saying my opinion on that. I'm going to let you guys have an opinion on what he said. I'm simply right now, currently for this topic, I'm simply being a messenger. But he said, imagine if there was a country with 1 billion white people, that would be a powerhouse. It's up to you guys. Now, of course, being 25 years old, living life, having more experiences, living more through life experiences, we're all hypocrites from time to time, which is normal. We're all human beings, which means that no one is perfect. I don't care who you are, you're not perfect. And there's never been a human being who is perfect in the past, and there's never going to be a human being that is perfect in the future, and there isn't one currently that is perfect in the present time. So of course, from time to time, we're all going to be hypocrites. The key isn't to not be a hypocrite. That's impossible. You're always going to be a hypocrite. The key is to minimize it and to try to be it as much as possible. We're always going to be hypocrites. All human beings are always going to be hypocrites. The key and the goal is to minimize it as much as you can. That's the goal. Of course, perfection is impossible since we're human beings, but the goal is to minimize it as much as we can. And also, if I might ask from personal experience, karma is a real thing, and you can never escape or hide from it. You know how sometimes, or maybe you yourself, from past experience, or you saw someone, whatever, someone did something bad, and with their logical thinking and with their rationality, they're like, yo, I'm not going to get caught. Nothing's going to happen. God sees everything. If you don't believe in God, karma sees everything. If you don't believe in karma, the universe sees everything. Life sees everything. You cannot escape from life. You cannot hide from life. You cannot hide from the universe. You cannot hide from God. Karma is real. What goes around comes around. From personal experience, from what I saw in my life and from other people's lives, karma is a real thing. You cannot escape from it. You cannot hide from it. It will always find you, and it will always make you pay. It's like a fucking debt collector who doesn't miss. It's a debt collector who will always find you, and it cannot hide from it. It's crazy, man. But from my 25 years of living on life, and from what I saw from personal experience from myself and from other people, karma is a real fucking thing, man. When you do wrong to someone, you do wrong to the universe, you do wrong to God, because that person is a child of God, is a child of the universe. And in my opinion, we're all brothers and sisters. So when you do wrong to someone, you do wrong to yourself. And in my opinion, just like karma, like I said, when when you do something wrong to someone, it's gonna come back to you 10 times worse than what you did to him. Same goes the other way around. When you do something good to someone, it's gonna come back to you 10 times better than what you did to him. That's just like a law of attraction. It's a law of the universe, and it's a real law, which many theorists and many physicists explained throughout history. Okay, so guys, like I talked once regarding the movie Django Unchained and how much it had a big positive impact on me and my life, there's another movie that I really love and which also had a really big impact, positive impact on me and my life. And I have it tatted here on my inner right bicep. Is the movie 300. Why? Yo, it's a movie of courage. Bro, 300 men going to face 100,000 Persians, and they know they're gonna die. Those 300 men, they know they're gonna die. There's no way of you surviving. They know they're gonna die. They're still marching forward because they know that their actions is gonna wake up the entirety of the Greece, which will then make Greece go to war against Persians, right? And then which will also make Greece protect their culture, their way of life, and their society, their women, their children from Persian invaders. But those 300 men who were led by Leonidas, they went there knowing that they're going to die for a greater cause. Know how fucking brave you have to be? Like, broski, 95% of you guys are afraid to approach a woman because you're afraid of her saying, no, I'm not interested in you. Because then you're not going to be able to sleep. You're going to go home crying and you're not going to be able to sleep. Imagine being led by Leonidas. He looks at you. You're like, broski, you're coming with me to die. You're literally coming with me to die, broski. You know how fucked up that is? You know how mentally strong you have to be? The bravery from those people is just crazy. And of course, the movie is really well done. The first one, in my opinion, is the best 300. The first one with the Spartans and with Leonidas. In my opinion, that's the best one. But that movie, man, had a big impact on me on being brave and on how, as a man, you have to be really courageous, you have to be brave, and you have to be ready to sacrifice yourself for a greater cause. In my opinion, I prefer taking an L, taking a loss, than not doing anything and not even trying. The thing that I hate the most, even more than taking an L, even more than taking a failure, even more than taking a rejection, is being dormant and not doing anything. Just sitting on my couch and not doing anything. I fucking hate that because I feel like I'm not advancing in life. I'm not getting anything done and I'm not going forward in life. I prefer to go forward, fall 20 times than to simply stay at the start line. I prefer starting the race, falling 100 times if I have to fall, but at least finishing the race, than just staying at the start line from the beginning. I fucking hate that. Me personally, when I'm not doing anything, when I'm not trying something, like trying to make something out of nothing, trying to accomplish my dream somehow, I don't know how, what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, who fucking knows. I wake up every morning, I'm like, okay, what do I have to do today? I don't know, but I'm going to try to do my best. I'm going to try to figure things out. That's a million times better than simply saying, okay, I'm going to wake up, I don't know what to do, so I'm simply going to do nothing. Yo, I fucking hate that. Me personally, I hate being like static, not doing anything. I fucking hate that. So I prefer getting rejected by 10,000 women than not getting rejected by a single one. Why? Because if you don't get rejected by a single one, you didn't approach a girl. You didn't do anything. But if I got rejected by 10,000 girls, I did something. I tried my best. I tried to get something out of nothing. I approached 10,000 girls. They all said no, okay. But by approaching them, I learned new skills. I learned to be a better talker. I learned how to be more charismatic. I learned to be more brave. I learned something. I evolved as a human being through those 10,000 failures. But simply doing nothing, you're not evolving, you're not getting better, and you're not going to get closer to accomplishing your dreams and all your goals. And when I'm unsure, you know, sometimes you're on your path and you're unsure, oh, what should I do? Like, when that happens, it happened to me many times and it still happens to me many times. Just power through it. do something, figure it out, power through it, and you're gonna figure it out by doing it and by powering through it. But simply doing nothing, it's not gonna help you. Of course, like I said, it happens to everyone. Sometimes you're just like, yo, what should I do today? Like, I want to accomplish this and that, but I don't know what to do. Like, what the fuck should I do? Try something, man. In my opinion, that's how I work. I don't know what to do at work or on my podcast or at the gym. I don't know. I just try something, man. Fuck it. It's better to try something, take an L, take a rejection, than simply not doing anything. Of course, you're not going to take an L. You're not going to take a rejection to a certain degree. Like, if you don't try anything, in my mind, you still didn't gain anything. But of course, if you don't do anything, you're not going to see a girl in your face tell you, oh, no, I'm not interested. So technically, you're not going to take an L. You're not going to take a rejection. But at the end of the day, you're not going to get her also. So at least this guy is trying something, and he has way more chances of getting the girl than you do. And this not only goes for girls. I'm only using like approaching girls as an example because it's simple to explain. But this goes for accomplishing your dreams, creating a big business, clothing line, podcast, whatever, a business. Doing something is always better than doing nothing. Even when you're unsure, keep moving, power through it, and never stop. Okay, guys, so just like music, before I used to hate a lot on country music, and then I met a girl, I was seeing her for a couple of weeks, and she introduced me to country music. She showed me a lot of good fucking musics, and then what I realized was I simply said I don't like country music, so I don't even want to try it. I don't care about it. I hate it. But I never tried it. So sometimes you simply have to try it to know if you like it. Like once she started playing, she was like, no, believe me. She like forced me to listen to a couple of songs from Chris Stapleton. And I was like, yo, these songs are actually really fucking good, man. Like what the actual fuck? Like country music, of course, some songs are really bad, just like rap music. Some songs are bad. Some rock songs are bad, some are good. Now, of course, it's all personal taste. But if you don't try something, you cannot truly know if you like it or if you don't like it. In my experience, this was with country music. In the beginning, I was sure I hated it. Maybe because I heard like one or two songs somewhere at the bar and I was like, yo, these songs suck. And I never really digged deep into it. But when someone took the time to show me some other songs, I was like, yo, this genre really has some good music. And same goes for hockey. When I was young, I grew up amongst many Quebecers and they played, of course, hockey, right? And I was like one of the only guys who played soccer. And of course, they would joke around, they would fuck around saying, oh, soccer is a sport for pussies because all of you guys fake. It's not strong. We touch you, you guys fall to the ground. I understand their logic. And then I would always hit back with, we're the most popular sport on planet Earth. Way more people watch soccer than hockey. We're a way bigger sport than hockey. It was always like that debate, right? And when I was young, I was like, oh, hockey's boring. Like, you can't even see the puck. It's a boring sport. I don't care about it. I don't even want to watch it. But recently, like maybe 1 year ago, I started watching Canadian games, Montreal Canadian games. I started, of course, my cousin who played in the OHL, now he's playing in the NCAA Division 1. I went to see his games because that's my fucking cousin. And then simply watching more games, hockey games, being more into it, I realized, yo, this is actually a really fucking dope sport. It's a really fucking nice sport. If I'm being honest, like when I watched Canada against America and there was like 3 fights in 9 seconds, I was like, yo, this sport's actually fucking nice, bro. The only reason I hated the sport before, maybe it was because my friends who were Quebecers always fucked around with me like, oh, soccer's a pussy sport. So I felt like the need to tell them, yeah, but your sport isn't that popular, so I don't care about your sport. Maybe that's why, maybe because I never really dig deep into it. My dad was never a hockey guy. My parents are from Serbia. We don't even have hockey over there. It was never in my life. But when I put my mind to it and when I started watching it, I'm like, yo, this is actually a really fucking nice sport. Now, of course, there are some sports where you can try to watch them and you're like, okay, this sport actually sucks like I thought. Like I'm pretty sure, again, maybe I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure if I start watching cricket, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have the same opinion that I have right now. It's fucking lame. Maybe I'm going to be wrong, but who knows? But hockey, for hockey, I used to always love basketball and American football, so I never had a problem with that. But me, specifically hockey. When I was younger, I used to hate on hockey. But now that I got more into it and watching more games, watching more highlights, I was like, yo, I came to the conclusion that this sport is actually badass. Like you imagine, this is the only sport where you can literally fist fight with an opponent. Broski, fist fight. Like boxing's crazy, you have gloves, and of course that remains boxing. Same goes for UFC. In hockey, broski, they take out their gloves. It's purely fists. They start going at each other. And plus, it's played on ice. Like, that's fucked up. They have skates, like fucking skates. They have a puck, which if it hits your face, it can literally break your face. It can break your jaw. Like that little puck. If someone slaps it to your jaw, like they don't have their jaw covered, it can literally break your jaw. Like you see many hockey players who are missing teeth, and the reason why is because maybe it's a puck, maybe they got in a fight and they just don't give a fuck. Like that sport, like Mike Tyson once said on a podcast, hockey is a sport for crazy white guys. That's a fact, bro. You have to be, I can never do hockey. With all the hitting, all the skating. First of all, I suck at skating, so that's why I would never do it. But all the hitting, and the fist fights, hell nah. You imagine Georges Larac. For guys who don't know who Georges Larac is, Google him. Imagine you have to fist fight against that guy. Bro, hell nah, bro. I don't care what he did. Broski, I'm sorry. I'm going to go sit on the bench. You do you, broski. I'm good. Nah, that's a fucked up sport, man. But I fucking love it, and I respect that sport. I respect the shit out of the people who play that sport. All the white Canadians, I respect the shit out of it because it's a beautiful sport. And it's some fucking, it's manly ass sport. It's a crazy sport, man. Okay, let's do 3 quotes. 1 from Carl Jung and 2 from Friedrich Nietzsche. For people who don't know, Carl Jung was like this big thinker from Switzerland, and Friedrich Nietzsche, a bit more famous than Carl Jung, was a big psychologist and thinker from Germany. And Carl Jung was a student under Friedrich Nietzsche. So the first quote is from Carl Jung. He said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." I agree. In my opinion, all human beings have a destiny. We all have something that we want to accomplish, that we need to accomplish for the fulfillment of our soul. So when you go through throughout the trajectory of life, by facing your fears, by doing what you want to do, deep down, we all have dreams. We all have something we want to do. When you get in that trajectory, you slowly become the person your soul wants you to become. And that is the privilege of a lifetime. Not comparing yourself with others, because we all have a different life. We all have a different path. Comparing yourself with the person you were yesterday, only comparing yourself with yourself, and striving every single day to become better, face your fears, do more, and become who you truly are meant to become. That is the privilege of life. Next quote is from Friedrich Nietzsche. He said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anything." That's true, man. There are so many stories throughout history, throughout many different phases of history, which were very difficult for many human beings. But if you have a why, that is when you have hope. When you have hope, you can bear anything. That's why people seek refuge in religion. Religion gives you hope in life, gives you calm of mind, and it mostly gives you hope, which will make you endure almost literally anything, any challenge life will throw at you. That's why many people seek refuge in religion, like myself. And the last quote is from Friedrich Nietzsche. He said, "Beware that when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster." Fact, many people, they want to fight monsters. We all hate monsters. We all hate bad people. But in doing that, we need to make sure that in return, we don't become a monster ourselves. That was it, guys, for this episode. Peace out.